Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wellpower Method Mindful Masterclass. This is where we're going to have videos, blogs, discussions, all about how to build mindfulness, build consciousness into your day to day. Because when we build mindfulness and we build consciousness into our day to day, we are impacting our eating habits, our sleep, our stress, our happiness, relationships, work performance, just about every aspect of your life. Most of you know me. I am Gabrielle. I am the dietitian and founder behind the Wellpower Method. But new here today is Rachel, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. But Rachel works on the Wellpower Method team, and she specializes in mindfulness and consciousness and helps a lot on the back end of the business here with us. So I will let her introduce herself.
Thank you, Gabby. Hi, Wellpower community. My name's Rachel, and like Gabby just said, I really focus on the mindfulness and kind of the wellness with your brain and your thoughts and your overall self. And that's how I kind of contribute to the Wellpower Method. I've been with Gabby for about a year now. She's also one of my close and dear friends. And I'm really excited to be here and doing these master mindful classes with you all. This conversation that we're going to be having today is going to be really focusing on like the mindfulness of our thoughts, because a lot of the times we run through life on autopilot and we don't think about really what we're thinking day to day. We all kind of understand that we all have a constant chatter that goes on in our head, and it's going to be a continuation of like a stream of thought, and it's coming from some part in us, but nobody really stops and being like, wait, why am I thinking this? And also, where is this coming from? So we're really going to be diving into kind of why mindfulness is important and how it kind of really intertwines with and kind of overall helps you and your process with the Wellpower Method. So to dive right in, Gabby, do you want to talk about why mindfulness is so important to the Wellpower Method?
Yes. So if you're a client of mine, you know that I always talk about mindfulness, consciousness, and building that into your day to day because it impacts our journey with nutrition and health, our bodies, our lifestyle. That little voice in our head, constant stream of thoughts, is our subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind is formed from when we were born till the age we are now. It's formed by our parents, our family, our teachers, our mentors, our friends, our environment, by our core beliefs, and they make up who we are and how we react to things now. It impacts us physically, so it impacts our nervous system, how we breathe, and then it also impacts us mentally and subconsciously, so how we think and our kind of automatic habits. 95% of our day is driven by this autopilot. And so you might have, driven somewhere that you drive all the time and you get there and you're like, I don't even remember driving here. That's just because we're on autopilot. We're on that mindlessness stream of thoughts. So the cool part is though, is this subconscious is something that we can tap into, and understanding our subconscious mind lets us train our mind to create a lifestyle of habits, routines, beliefs, thought patterns that allow us to thrive and allow us to reach our goals, both physically and emotionally and mentally, financially, in our eating habits, in our exercise habits, in our relationships with people in our lives, in our work performance, and allow them to stick for good, because we are literally tapping into the subconscious mind that takes up so much of our day to day and retraining it.
Yeah. The voice in your head really matters because it is the thing that's helping you make this 30,000 some odd decisions that the average human makes day in and day out. And like the fun thing about it is you have the ability to control it, and you have the ability and the power to change it if you're kind of stuck in this rut of like, oh, I actually don't really like the thought patterns that are running through my head every day that I've kind of established for myself. So how does one begin to control and pay mind to their thinking?
Yeah, so like we talked about, we spend a lot of our time in this subconscious, and it is important. Like we just said, we make over 30,000 decisions in this subconscious every single day, and you might be able to relate to that in a way when it comes to your eating habits or habit building. Say you have this plan to eat this perfectly beautiful meal plan for the week. The week goes by, you didn't follow it, you emotionally stress ate, getting back into that rut. Or we have this plan that we're going to stick with this morning routine, and then the day begins and we lose control and we feel like we don't have control of our thoughts, actions, and behaviors around food, around lifestyle, and around our wellness. One way we can really tap into this and begin to identify these habits and patterns and really work to rework them is through consciousness journaling, which is something I do with Wellpower Method clients. And I know it's a journal activity that Rachel also loves, so I'll let her talk about it a little bit.
You know, I love it. Yes, I think that for a good portion of my life, I was running on this autopilot, and then I kind of happened across this activity, and it really changed the way that my day-to-day thinking operated. So I'm going to walk you guys through it super quick. It's something that you can start doing every single morning, so it kind of sets you up for the day ahead. 2 steps, super easy. Step number 1, you're going to be writing down kind of what behaviors or patterns do you want to change? And don't write out a laundry list, because yes, we all have all of these little aspects about ourselves that we were like, oh, I guess I could be changing this. Focus on one that you know is going to be achievable, attainable, and you're going to see results in. Number 2, you're going to write affirmations or statements that will help you achieve this. And so don't overthink it. Just be like, okay, what can I actually do day to day that's going to help me achieve this goal? And number 3, how are you going to kind of put those into action in your day-to-day life? And especially that day in particular, like, what am I going to do today to actively make a change that I can see tomorrow? And then step 2 is something you're going to be doing also in the mornings. And this is going to be something that's going to take maybe 5 minutes of your time. So as your coffee's brewing, as your sibling, husband, wife, spouse is in the bathroom hogging it, take a pen and pencil, and some paper, and write out these kind of step-by-steps. So the first one is going to be a daily affirmation. And so an example would be, I am calm like the ocean, no matter the weather. And then second, you're going to be writing, today I'll focus on shifting my pattern of. So today I'm going to be focusing on shifting my pattern from of reacting to a stressful situation by stress eating. Simple as that. Next, I am grateful for. We all have heard this before, and it is something that is going to change the way that you see the world, whether you like it or not. So I'm grateful for my legs because they bring me places. And then the person I'm becoming will experience more what? An example of this, the person I'm becoming is going to experience more relaxation because I'm going to be mindful of my thoughts. Next is going to be, I have an opportunity to be my future self today when I experience anxious thinking or experience stressful thinking, and take a minute to pause and let those kind of thoughts wash over me and you disregard them. And then last but not least, when I think about who I'm becoming, I feel, this is my favorite one, because I think that a lot of the times we kind of have this negative self-image, and a lot of people struggle with that. We're human. So an example of this would be, when I think about who I'm becoming, I feel more confident. I feel more relaxed. I feel more fulfilled with my life. And this consciousness journaling can be found in the Wellpower Method program, and also on our website and the blog. So you guys should definitely check that out. But that is just one activity among the dozens that Wellpower Method kind of incorporates into the program. So as we know, paying mind to our thoughts is extremely important. And then another extremely essential thing that we need to be aware of is the ability to cultivate these limiting beliefs. And this is kind of highlighting the language that we use with ourselves. So a lot of the times we are using can't, won't, unable, and we're letting these words, these negative words, define who we are. We're letting them influence our personality, and that's not the way it needs to be. So Gabby, why is reframing limited beliefs so challenging to the majority of us?
Yeah, well, it's hard because one, we don't notice that they're even streaming through us, that we have these limiting self-beliefs, or we notice them, but we don't realize that we can grab onto them and reframe them. So the first thing you got to do is you got to label this thought pattern that's going through your head and controlling your habits, controlling your life. There's three types. I mean, there's many, but three of the most important and ones that many of us experience are all or nothing, discounting the positives, and labeling. So, all or nothing, a lot of you might be really familiar with, especially when it comes to your health, your nutrition, your wellness. Everything is good or bad. I'm doing really good. I'm doing really bad. I do really well all week. I do really bad on the weekend. And you get stuck in that vicious cycle because you are labeling that as all or nothing. So that's one. The other one is discounting the positives, where you had, weeks of habit building, change, little nutritional changes, doing really well, and then you have one bad day, and all you can remember is that bad day, and you let that bad day, that all or nothing mentality, take over your thoughts and your beliefs and your actions for the next few days. And that puts you in that vicious cycle and in that rut. And then there's labeling, where we let our actions label us. So, for example, you had a really long, stressful workday. You get home, there's half of a cheesecake left over in your fridge. You almost black out. You go into that subconscious, you go into that autopilot, and you eat the whole rest of the cheesecake. And you sit there and you label yourself based on this action, saying, I'm overweight, I'm a failure, I'm never going to reach my nutrition goals. You are giving that action of just simply eating cheesecake the ability and the power to label you. And then you identify with that. And when we identify with these limiting self beliefs, all or nothing, the discounting the positives, and the labels you're giving ourselves, that's what we're creating our reality out of. And that's what gets us feeling really stuck in that rut. So yeah, there's so many limiting self-belief activities we can do to really identify these beliefs and then reframe them. But reframing itself is just such an important thing to learn how to do.
Definitely. And speaking of being stuck in that rut, I think that we all experience that, especially through the pandemic, and something that we're still might be experiencing for a lot of Americans and people around the world. Um, and especially during these times where you do feel stuck or you do feel a sense of hopelessness, unhealthy habits can resurface from years ago. And then those can be even more discouraging because you're like, oh my goodness, I thought I kind of put this to rest so long ago, but here it is up again. And now I'm dealing with it again. And the only thing that you need to be aware of is the fact that you can unlearn these thought patterns. And there are ways in which, when you do feel them coming up, that you can go do these mindful activities, basically, which Gabby can definitely get into, that are going to help you kind of get out of your head and back into your body and back into the present moment. So what are some of these mindful activities, Gabby, that the Wellpower Method recommends?
Yeah, so there's tons of mindful activities that we can do. But first, to understand why we do them, there's something called neuroplasticity, which is our ability to rewire our brain, which we talk a lot about in the Wellpower Method. But it is, so I like to break the brain up into two. You have the emotional brain, and then you have the logical brain. Logical brain lives right behind your forehead. Emotional brain's in the back. Emotional brain's where our fight or flight lives, our stress responses live, our life on autopilot, mindlessness lives. Our society today makes us very dependent on that part of our brain, when in reality, we want to strengthen and become more dependent on that logical brain, that prefrontal cortex, where your self-awareness and your self-control lives. But the good news is that part of our brain, like any other muscle in our body, can be strengthened and made stronger. And that's by creating new neural pathways, which was just discovered that we were able to do this within the last 50 years. For so long, it was thought that we could not change the brain and activate these different areas after our brains were developed around the age of 25. But over the last few decades, we've recognized that you can, in fact, strengthen this part of our brain and make us more conscious, more self-aware, and more in control. Again, this is what fancy way to call it is neuroplasticity, but it's really just strengthening that self-awareness and self-control muscle. And there's many ways you can do that through lots of activities, little thought exercises I do with clients through the Wellpower Method. And then there's also mindful activities that build our consciousness in the moment, and just day-to-day hobbies, activities that help strengthen this part of our brain. And that can be a sit-down guided meditation or a silent meditation, which many of you, I'm sure you've heard of, for building mindfulness, can be really powerful. But there's other forms of mindful activities that some people prefer. which is what I like to call moving meditation. So it's really just focusing on one thing that you enjoy at a time and really working to focus on that one thing. That's what we call moving meditation. That can look like yoga, connecting your breath to your movement and focusing on that. That can be reading. That can be walking and just paying attention to nature, the trees, the air on your skin. That can be a creative hobby like painting, watercolors, gardening, journaling in the morning, cooking. So it's really just focusing on one thing at a time, and doing that action helps us strengthen that prefrontal cortex, that logical brain, build consciousness, and work to get out of these feelings of being in a rut, and get in control of your health, your wellness, and your life. But
Neuroplasticity is a mouthful.
yes, it is.
But definitely, if you guys are more interested in this, definitely check out the blog article that we have up, that kind of dives into more detail about neuroplasticity. And then also Wellpower Method, in which it really focuses on these self-awareness activities as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there's and this is something that we could go on and to talk about, but we'll not bore you too much, but know that doing types of activities is really the first step into gaining control of your health, your wellness, and your whole life, to make these nutritional changes, make these physical activity changes, habits, routines stick with you for the rest of your life. And that's why phase one out of the 4 phases of Wellpower Method is self-awareness and mindset, because we work to really identify these thoughts, actions, and behaviors, get to the root of them, and then holistically work through them. But yeah, this is just the beginning, and I'd love to hear from you guys what really resonated with you that we talked about. Was it a limiting self-belief? Was it a journal activity? Do you want to learn more about different mindfulness activities that you can engage in to increase your self-awareness and self-control? Feel free to email me. But as Rachel said, we have tons of awesome stuff coming onto the website under the Mindfulness Masterclass, where it'll be videos, blogs, and so on. But never hesitate to reach out, and we hope you enjoyed this fun discussion around a guide to really cleaning out your thoughts and these limiting thought patterns that we get stuck in.
Yes, we are looking forward to many master mindful classes to come. But thank you all for tuning in today.